You hear so many stories of those struggling with addictions, but very few about the people who had to live with, support, and love them. Many of these stories are not told due to shame, guilt, and fear. Marietta has shared her husband's battle with addiction, but now it's time for her to share a part of her story, married to an addiction.
Yeah, it don't look like the ideal way that you fall in love with somebody, but it is what it is at that point.
So at that point, once you had that realization, how did the relationship go from there and leading up to the wedding? Tell me about, I want to get to that wedding day.
Oh, yeah. No.
I was there.
Well, because he was locked up at the time, okay. We basically I would go and visit him. We would communicate. We talked a lot. We wrote a lot. And the thing was, he came home 2005, October 26th or 27th, and we got married September the 24th. So he wasn't home a month before we got married. And I actually had the whole wedding planned before he came home. So because they kept changing his release date.
Okay.
So I had the invitations. Brendan's like, okay. So we trying to figure out the math and the dates and stuff. Mm-hmm. So I said, I'm not putting these jokers in the mail until you home. So when he came home, whatever day that was, the next day I put the invitations in the mail. So there really wasn't a dating per se type of relationship. It was more, I loved him and we wanted to get married.
After the marriage, because I know that some, people, they get ready for the wedding mm-hmm. and they don't really think about what happens the day after the wedding mm-hmm. because there's a life after that.
Oh, yeah.
And so during the marriage, I know it's always great at first. At what point did he begin to show signs of being addicted?
He actually, going back to, I guess, the way I grew up, if he did show signs, I had no clue. I didn't know what to look for. Okay. I didn't recognize him. It wasn't until one day he didn't come home, and for whatever reason, I checked the bank account and all the money was gone. And I think he came home maybe... It was whatever day it was. He didn't come home that night. He didn't come home until the next day. And so when I called one of his brothers, that's when one of his brothers told me to check the bank account. And I'm like, why? And so when I checked the bank account and I saw there wasn't any money in the account, that's when it was like, Marietta, this could be, a sign that he's gone back to that lifestyle. Mm-hmm. Now, while we were married, now this is a year into the marriage, so it wasn't immediate that one incident happened. So that's my first encounter with it was then. So about a year, maybe a year and a half into the marriage. So leading up to that, everything was fine. When he first came home from jail, he literally had 5 job offers. So it wasn't as if he went back out to the streets to hustle or do anything like that. He always worked, but he did lose his job. He was working as a carpenter, and he was building the townhomes that's over by Comerica Park, right on Woodward. Okay. He was building those, and he lost that job and he went into heating and cooling. And so he went to school for that. So that gave him a lot of time on his hands. So he met up with a lot of his old friends that he used to run the street with during that period because they were in school, and then it was over in that area where he grew up at. Well, where he used to, hang out at. And so that whole connection drew him back in, to being around the people that he was around. And I really think that he thought that because he was saved and he knew the Lord, that he would be able to minister to them. But what I've learned even what he told me is the lifestyle of being in prison and being out is totally different. So where he thought that he was strong in the Lord, yeah, but he was around strong men that constantly reminded him who he was and who God was. So when he broke away from that and became closer to his old friends, that overpowered, you know, what he had.
Wasn't as strong.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's how, or when the addiction started. And when he came home that day, I had never seen a man cry like that before. And the thing that he said was, I don't understand why I will go back to something that I know would kill me when I'm finally in a place that I've always dreamed of. I've always wanted a family. I've always wanted to be married. I always wanted to have my own. I have it. I don't know why I went back there.
Wow.
He always said, that's why I said, going back to what I said, he was always honest about everything. Even if it was, like I said, the good, bad, and ugly, he was honest. And I think at that point is when I started to feel his heart. And I felt like he, even though he's in this addiction, he really doesn't want to be in it. So I need to help him.
And there's nothing wrong with feeling that need to help either. I think it's natural because you're a wife and you know, you naturally have a heart to help anyway.
Right.
And so how did the marriage go from that day forward, and how long did it last, and did it get better? Did it get worse? I mean, you had ups and downs.
Right.
And tell me about that.
Actually, in the beginning, it was bad. It was really bad. From the standpoint of, he was how people talk about functional alcoholics, that they can drink, but yet still hold a job, still do, you know, everyday things. So he was able to do that, stay out all night, getting high. But the one thing, he never stole from our house, never.
Okay.
He never took anything out of our house. He never brought any of the stuff, but no, he did once. He brought some drugs home once. And then after I kind of lost it in a way that a Christian woman wouldn't do. but yeah. And it was hard. There were times where I felt abandoned. There actually were moments where he would drop me off somewhere. He'd take the car, leave me at work. I had to figure out how to get home from work. I remember one time we were at his mom's house. He took the car, left me there. And I was so embarrassed about it. I didn't want to ask anybody to take me home, so I caught the bus. Okay. I don't catch the bus. Right. You know, I didn't catch the bus when I was going to school. Wow. So I caught the bus. There were times where I was going into drug houses, honking the horn, telling them, you know, let him out. Because again, going back to that first day, this grown man, strong black man, sitting on the couch crying like a baby, saying that he didn't want to be like this. Who wakes up, he told me, who wakes up in the morning saying they want to be a crackhead? Nobody. Right. That's not something that you aspire to do or be, but yet he found himself in that situation. So you're telling me this, I got to help you. You know, so I'm going to drug houses, knocking on doors. And in the beginning, it was a little manipulative. He was being manipulative. Because he would tell me, oh, they won't let me out the house until you bring, you know, such and such amount of money. Wow. And so I would go to the bank in the middle of the night, withdraw hundreds of dollars, thinking that he was in danger and that they were going to, you know, kill him or something. And I think I did that maybe 3 times I did that. And the third time, the guy came out. No, Bernard went in the house, and actually he went behind the house. I found out later he didn't go back in the house. And one of the guys came out. I was like, where's my husband? He's like, who? And I described him. Oh, he gone. I was like, well, why do you guys give drug addicts credit? You know, why do you allow them to come in here, smoke up stuff, and then hope that they bring the money back? Okay. And he was like, we don't do that. What he did was, he ran out of money, so he lied to you so that you could bring him money in order for him to get high again. And it turned out he, like I said, he never went in the house. He went around the corner, and he was on Finkel and Evergreen.
Wow.
Him and another guy. And I saw them walking. He wasn't even going to come back to me. So I pulled up on him, pulled up on the curb. I might have hit him. I ain't kill him.
Car?
Girl.
Okay.
I might have bumped him a little bit. And I'm jumping out the car, and I think I hit him because I was so mad. How dare you lie to me? How dare you allow me to be put in this situation?
I was going to go to that. Like, the danger you were putting yourself in. And I mean, even though I know he's not thinking clearly, the danger he was putting you in.
Yeah. And then other situations. Others. But now, when I did that, that was the last time he did that, though. That was the very last time he did that. Because once he came home, maybe a day or so later, he told me, Marietta, he told me about other instances where I would go into drug houses. Marietta, when you went into this house, they literally have shotguns behind the door and you walking in. There was a house on Burt Road that he used to be at all the time. I literally put my hand through the window and unlocked the door and walked in. And he was like, Marietta, you don't realize what you're doing. He said, I don't care what I'm out there doing. Don't come out after me. And I'm like, well, why did you call me? He said, I won't do it again. But if I do, know that it's the drugs that's doing it. It ain't me. So don't come out there. And then he also said, don't allow what I do change who you are.